G'day Turtle Champions, Turtle Satters, how are ya? One of the questions we often get asked is why do turtles come out and nest in the rain? One, it's probably easy to dig into, but there's a physiological reason why it's so much better to nest in the rain. And here at Western Sydney, we're going to show you why. So we're going to do some science, so stay tuned and watch what we're going to do. What we actually have here are two boxes that what we're going to call nesting substrates, and we're going to do experiments in here and I'll show you what we've done. And what we've got is some high piece equipment that actually measures oxygen content, because one of the things that we have to remember is that eggs breathe, so they need oxygen and they produce lots of carbon dioxide as well. So we're going to monitor this and actually show you what a nest profile in terms of oxygen looks like after a nest has been created in the rain or if it's been created in the dry. So the first thing we're going to do is actually wet one of our substrates. So actually create a rainy day, and so what the soil would be like after a rainy day. Okay, so we've got our watering can to simulate some rain. So we'll come over to our substrates and we'll make this one really wet. So nice big thunderstorms come through and here we go, nice and wet. Alright, so you can see the difference in colour. So this one is obviously darker, full of water. This one's really quite dry. And so now we're going to create our nests. Alright, so we're going to use pebbles instead of eggs, just to create the nest, because that volume is actually really important. So what a female does, and I'll show you in our first one, with her back legs, she'll dig a hole in there, particularly when it's raining, and look, forms a nice hole, a bit hard to see, but guess what, we can fill it full of eggs. Like so, look at that, and then we can just cover it up like a nest plug. All done. What about our dry one? Okay, let's try and create it. Oh look, you can see it caving in, and that's really important. So it's actually really hard, it gets wider and keeps caving in, but alright, let's get in there. Let's put our eggs in, like so, and we'll just cover it up like a female would nest it down, put it down. There's our two nests. Done. So we've now created a nest in dry conditions and a nest in wet conditions. So now we're going to do the science. Okay, so we now need to get our oxygen probes. So I'll follow these here. We've got our nest sitting up here. You can see the light one on the left hand side. The right hand side is our nest that was created during rain. So what we're going to do is, this here is our oxygen probe. Oop, blurry. We're just going to put this into the middle of the nest that we created. And we'll make sure it gets deep enough and it's not leaky as such. We'll grab our other one to do the same to the dry one, just in the middle of the nest there. Again, just need to get in there, like so. Okay, so we now have our oxygen probes in there, so we can actually start measuring oxygen content within those nests. So just for this is usually we'd put it a little bit deeper, but this will for just to show you now, and while we film it, we've got it pretty much probably about 10 centimeters down into the nest. And what we're going to do is actually simulate almost like a flooding event. So these two nests now have been created, and we're going to, in both of them, we're going to have a lot of water, a lot of rain. Okay, so we're now measuring our oxygen content within the nest in milligrams per litre. So about 9 milligrams per litre, which is about right for a percentage of air. It's now sort of settling down. We've got our probes in there, channel 1, channel 2, roughly about the same, around that 9. Okay, so what we now need to do is actually just simulate a wet weather event. So we're going to get our Here we go. So let's pour 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So we now have a flooding event that's actually occurring. And you can see it's been a little drop in oxygen, and you can see it's already a significant difference between, but it's coming back. So you can see that in both channels here. What we're now going to do is actually simulate, straight after this, eggs. They're producing carbon dioxide. So we're going to flush this with carbon dioxide and watch how our nests perform once they're full of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide at really, really high levels can actually kill, and they can actually suffocate within the nest. So we're now going to pump some carbon dioxide in here and watch what happens. Alright, so we've now got a tube of carbon dioxide, not turned on yet, and here's our chamber of carbon dioxide. This is our dry nest here, and we're actually going to monitor and watch what happens with the oxygen content once we turn this on. Here we go. There we go, you can see it dropping. Well, once we get it down to 0, we'll do the same thing with the other nest. Okay, so we now move to channel 1. Oh, I already put it in, as you can see. And you can see that the oxygen has dropped completely. So carbon dioxide is now filling the space. It's a bit like, right at the end of incubation, there's lots of carbon dioxide being produced by the eggs developing in there, and now we're at 0. So we're about 5 minutes after the experiment started, and essentially what we now look is the nesting conditions look pretty much the same. They're now totally super saturated. You can see so much water has gone through here, and it's now gathered in the drain at the bottom. And so what we're looking at is 5 minutes. What we want to see is the oxygen profile. So we've now pumped so much carbon dioxide in there so that it actually has gone to 0, which you've seen. And now what we're looking for is looking how quickly does the oxygen come through. And you can sort of see it tracking along here like this in one of the nests. And so what we're going to do is leave it for the next 15-20 minutes and compare those profiles. So basically comparing how much oxygen comes back into the nest in a nest that was created in very dry conditions, or those that were created during wet conditions. Pretty much simulating what happens when a turtle comes out to nest, usually after a storm or a rain. Alright, so we've finished our experiment, and so what we want to look at is the oxygen content, how quickly oxygen returns to a nest that was created as a chamber during the wet, as what turtles normally do when they come out, during rain or after rain in storm in November, what we call our turtle month, compared to those where if they had to construct it in dry sand. And don't forget what we did, we actually just created a flooding event afterwards. And so here's our results. This is the exciting bit here. Alright, so what you can see here is a graph. And on the bottom is time, so pretty much time since we basically created 0 oxygen by flushing carbon dioxide through. And on the left hand side, or the vertical axis, or what we call the y-axis, is our oxygen content of the nest. And we have 2 lines. So these are the profiles of our 2 different nests. The bottom one, which is the orange one here, is the dry nest. So remember, we created a dry, eggs were kind of mixed with soil, and then we flooded the nest. And then the blue one here is actually the oxygen content of our nest that we created that was during the wet. So a turtle, as I said, the turtle coming out, creating a hollow chamber, dropping their eggs in, and then covering it with soil. So essentially what we've got here is almost an air chamber. And what you can see is the difference, quite a significant difference in terms of, after a flooding event or a big rain event, you can see the oxygen profile of that turtle nest with the chamber that was created while it was wet during turtle month, is actually diffusing oxygen much quicker back into the nest. So this is pretty cool. This is actually really important. And this is why creating that chamber, digging a hole during the wet actually sets them up really nicely to handle the environmental conditions that can occur a bit later on, and such as a flood that actually may occur. It can diffuse oxygen, get rid of that carbon dioxide, and diffuse oxygen much better than if it created the nest during the dry. So this is why, one of the reasons why, turtles nest during the wet. The practical applications of this lie at the heart of our turtle islands. Not only do we have to create an island that floats, but we also need to create nesting conditions that not only attract turtles, but actually create the right conditions for incubation, for these eggs to actually hatch and survive through very hot conditions or flooding rains, which we've seen over the last few years. So this is the research that we're conducting. This understanding how different nesting substrates can work and be resilient to environmental conditions is going to be vital for the research and for the practical application of these turtle islands.